Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. Now, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we also believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I am your host, Mitchell Osman, and I am so grateful and I'm humbled that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. Listen, today we've got another incredible episode for you, so let's get into it. Well, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, Eric, and I'm just excited to talk to you today. But before we jump in, I know there's going to be some people probably listening to the show that maybe had never heard of you or your family or what you guys have been up to. So I'll just read a little bit of your bio and then we'll jump into your story. But Eric is the content creator behind That Mountain Life. All right, and has put in thousands of hours to create consistent content on YouTube, on Instagram, a bunch of platforms, which we'll get into. But as a dad, Eric has had an adventurous spirit and a zest for life. His energy is contagious to both his family and his social media followers. Eric grew up paddling and swimming in the lakes of Ontario, here in Canada, which cultivated a passion for outdoor adventure activities. He's got a business diploma in adventure tourism and over 15 years of experience as a professional ski patroller and paramedic. And Eric blends professional work with an adventure lifestyle. He is driven by a vision to create content with the goal of inspiring others to pursue adventures of their own. Hey man, that's a great intro. And I'm looking forward to digging into your story. But first of all, man, just thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat. It's been over a year since I've been on a podcast, and they're always fun to just put words to some of the madness and ideals that I have as a dad, and it's fun to flesh stuff out.
Yeah, man, I first found you when I saw a video clip of one of your kids going on the slopes, snowboarding or something, and you had a mic strapped up to her, and she was like giggling and talking away, and I just thought it was the sweetest thing, and then ended up following you. We connected over Instagram, yep. And as I followed you, I began to learn that you do life quite different than the average, couple or the average parents or the average family. And so I love to kind of get into some of that unconventional approach that you take to parenting, to raising a family, because I know you've got a lot of opinions about that as well. But first of all, man, why don't you tell us just like, what got you here? Like, how did you start out in this journey? I mean, were you always this passionate about carving a different path, or that just kind of stumble into it? Or yeah, what's your story?
So as a child in school, my own school experience, it came pretty easy to me. The typical academic expectations laid out by parents, society, teachers. I was kind of an A student. In high school, I was on basketball, volleyball teams, captain of both of them. And, I was on path to sort of be that like valedictorian. I was just doing well in school. Like the kind of the status quo came easy to me, and I could excel at these things. And I read a book when I was 17 called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. And it was just one of those aha moment books for me. I don't know what it was. A biology teacher assigned it to our grade 11 class. And I read it and I had an epiphany. It literally just like opened up my mind as a very youthful, young, outgoing, energetic teenager. And it was it was an awakening moment of sorts, where I just realized that everything that I was getting externally rewarded for being good at was kind of exactly that. It was external. It was coming from society and our culture saying, good job, good boy, you're smart, you're successful. And I literally just sort of shattered it. Ishmael was about a middle-aged man having a bit of a midlife crisis. So I sort of had my midlife crisis when I was luckily 17 years old. And I just shifted. I stopped caring about grades, and I sort of came into my own, realizing that my life is my own path to walk. And it's sort of like I started reading like The Alchemist and other sort of like self-help books that are sort of the hero's journey. And that was what set my path on fire. Like, it set my soul on fire to sort of just say, hey, you don't have to follow the mold.
Love it. And Yeah, dude, I just love those insights. You know, I think as men, as fathers, we can think back to pivotal moments in our lives where our trajectory was changed. And it's cool that you had that insight at such an early age because a lot of us don't really get to that point until we get a little bit further on in the journey. And sometimes we need a little bit of a push to kind of get to that point. So your mission, on your website, for example, your mission says, we want to help people fall in love with the outdoors and encourage them to lead an active and healthy lifestyle. So what made you so passionate about being outdoors and being active and all those different things? Was there another pivotal moment outside of what you shared?
I think just my childhood was rooted in a lot of outdoor, unstructured, kind of free range play in the neighborhood. I was able to come home from school, hop on my bike, go rip around the neighborhood, knock on doors. We would play in the backwoods. We played, whether it's street hockey, we would just explore, bike, skateboard, play, kick the can. I just love being outside. I went to summer camp as a kid. And my sister, who's 4 years older than me, she started to get into canoe tripping when I would have been like 14, 15, and she was sort of finishing high school. And she started to do some canoe tripping, which is very big in the Muskoka, Huntsville area where I grew up. But we never went to a summer camp where we did a lot of, where we just did day camps. So we weren't doing overnight canoe tripping camps. And I think that just gave me a real healthy sense of like, getting a lot of joy and positive adventurous experience from paddling a boat in an open lake. And I ended up going to college for an outdoor diploma program. So I was on path to do a university degree. I was in academic courses and stuff, but with my pivot in high school, I sort of just said, hey, I want to enjoy my life. I want to pursue something that's interesting and more adventurous or something that I'm more lit up about. So I studied outdoor adventure, which is essentially like a guide training program at Algonquin College. Racked up a good, 15K of debt to go play and get a bunch of certification. It's not completely necessary if somebody wants to get a job in the outdoors, become a raft guide at ski patrol. You don't have to go to school for that. But it was a couple years for me to maybe, take a few breaths, get a little grounded, still be in some kind of organizational institution to learn some skills and figure out what I wanted to do. So I also knew that I wanted to be a ski patroller. I was watching a lot of Warren Miller movies as a kid and a teenager. My dad tells me the same two ski bum stories, or from his days growing up when he was on reading break from university. I've heard the stories 50 times. Bless his heart. So I knew about this like Western Canada, Western North America ski culture, which I grew up skiing in a little hill in Ontario, and I was like, hey, the big leagues are out west, so let's move west. A lot of young men are called to move west, whether they want to make money in the oil patch or if they want to go play in the hills like I did. So that was sort of my my trajectory or my path of what shaped me to want to come west and start playing outside and keep that outdoor adventure theme going.
Love that, man. Love that. And so one thing I know about you guys, if I remember correctly, is you kind of have chosen the homeschooling route. Were you guys in an RV at one point, like doing the camper, like the RV life for a while?
Still are. We just bought we managed to pull off a 5-acre purchase outside of Fernie here. Pretty expensive real estate market. We bought a house with my parents before that. They bought us out. We're on our own now here on this 5 acres, but we can't really afford the next step right now. So 5 of us are in a nice swanky new RV. It's winter. It's our first cold snap right now. We've lost our water a couple times. I just heat traced it the other day. Trying to cut down on my space heater bill that I have underneath there right now. So yeah, we're making it work. We're in an RV, the 5 of us, but it's a nice RV and it's quite roomy.
That is amazing. So homeschooling, RV life, living on the mountains, skiing, snowboarding, you name it. That's wild, dude. That's different than most, probably 99.9% of the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, I feel really grateful.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. And so let's talk about the whole schooling thing. So why is it that you've decided not to go the public school system route? And tell us a little bit about what you've chosen instead as an alternative. And the reason why I ask is because, a lot of young parents, are asking these questions. Our
Mhm.
world is in a kind of an interesting place right now. And, I know that homeschooling has been growing in popularity and lots of different alternative methods. Of course, like I was telling you before we hit record, my son is nowhere near going to school. So these aren't decisions I need to make right now. But
Mhm.
I do find it fascinating to hear people's different reasons for choosing one or the other, right? So tell us a little bit more about that journey, man.
Yeah, I could talk about schooling for a while. Definitely, definitely had a few conversations around this. I do make a bit of content around our homeschooling ethos and our philosophy. So I worked as an outdoor educator, working with teens and youth, leading canoe trips. Probably some of my most meaningful work I've ever done. I love working with kids. My wife was a teacher by trade, a traditional teacher at the elementary school level. She's from Saskatchewan, farm girl. So a lot of people think we're homeschooling because she's a teacher and she's able to teach our kids. Um, we subscribe to what's best described as an unschooling approach to our homeschooling journey. So a lot of people, when they think homeschooling, they think about bringing school into the home. And some of the biggest values we have are our rest and downtime and slower mornings for our kids. We don't want to just be go, 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 go. I'm a huge advocate of stimulating our kids and having them take on challenges and to be involved in our community and to do things. But I also don't want them to have to be like out the door. And I mean, that's Courtney's intuition as well as a mom. So homeschooling allows us to just adopt a slower strategy. Like a slower vibe and tempo to our family's rhythm. I think every family has a tempo and a rhythm. And a lot of times that's dictated to families if you're just sort of going on autopilot. You're sort of like, well, no, I mean, both parents have to work. I mean, that's no fault of their own. And they have to get their kids out the door. And it's a lot. I think it's a lot on kids' nervous systems and whether or not they can, most people can't put a name to it or describe, that's problematic. And they just sort of are going to, and kids are resilient. Humans are resilient. And, I'm not saying that that's a hellscape or the be all end all for families that aren't able to homeschool, but it's important to be able to just slow down, take a breath, especially in childhood. So we want our kids to have lots of unstructured outdoor play. We want them to get outside every day, no matter the weather. We want them to be booted up, suited up in the rain, playing in streams and creeks and puddles, wearing the right layers. And if they're cold, they can switch out their mitts. They can come in for a break, go back outside. We go with them and play when they were younger. So they get kind of climatized to this. And that doesn't happen if they're in school inside most days. I mean, most local school boards have like a -20 cutoff where kids can't go outside because it's dangerous. And meanwhile, kids up north are like, it's all relative, right? Like if we frame the cold as being dangerous and scary, then kids have to stay away from it. But we believe that the kids can kind of rise to those that become resilient. So the outdoors, I think there's no better teacher to cultivate resiliency and for it to facilitate an environment where kids can take on their own risks and sort of cross those logs above the creek and climb those trees. And it's just it's a little bit different than organized team sports. There's just something so healthy about being outside. So that's the number one reason why we homeschool, is so that our kids can spend more time being outside, moving their bodies.
Wow, I love that, man. It almost sounds kind of magical, right? When you explain it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, wow, that's so cool. And so, you most likely have friends with kids who are in, the public school system or just do, normal life, as it were. And it's interesting knowing that your wife was a teacher. And so obviously you're an advocate for this, and so it's a little biased, but what advantages or what have you seen in your children as they've grown up living this kind of lifestyle versus maybe if you were to kind of raise them in an environment where they were sort of a slave to the schedule and,
Mm-hmm.
pressed for time kind of thing, as you mentioned? What are some advantages you've seen, or what are some maybe ways that you've seen this flesh out in your kids and how they're growing up?
I think my goal as a parent, as a dad, is to just raise kids who have a healthy sense of self and a positive self-worth, like a sense of a connection to their self-worth. And when you batch kids together by age and expect them to all be at the same stage, whether it's kindergarten, grade 1, grade 3, even if they're not grading them, but you're constantly looking to your left and right and knowing that Susie and Joe are really good at this and I'm not, and you end up with this like unconscious comparison going on all the time. And so our kids are removed from that, and they're removed from sometimes the incessant friend drama that goes on when they're always like inside with the same 28 kids. Our kids are very involved in the community, and they play hockey, and they're on the freestyle ski team, and they've been to like art on the No School Fridays. They attend the art camps that like the school kids go to, and there's a small homeschool community here where they have peers and friends that don't go to school. Our oldest last year was in grade 5, and he attended public school for a little bit because there was actually a really great male teacher that we wanted him to go and experience school, so he knew what it was about. And he only lasted about half the year, but he knew 95% of the kids in his class. We live in a town of 6,000 people, and he knew almost everyone in his class, and he did quite well. It was French immersion. He was thrown in the deep end. We don't speak a lick of French. So, I mean, to answer your question, I just feel like the kids are well-rounded. Homeschooling doesn't have to be this like, I'm going to protect my kids in a bubble so much that they don't get to integrate with society or the culture at all. I think I want to insulate my kids from some of the culture, or at least I think 6 hours a day at kindergarten away from home is too much. A 5-year-old just going from 9 till 3 o'clock, and maybe they have to ride a bus and they're not home till 4, and they get out the door at 8:15. Like, there's an 8-hour period there where it's just too much stimulation from the early get-go. So again, cultivate a bit of rest, a little bit more nurturing, a little bit more downtime. They just get to grow up almost like a garden, like a greenhouse. You can just plant those seeds. You can have them protected from the elements a little bit longer. But when they have stronger roots, you know they're going to need the wind, and if you protect plants too long and you put them outside too late, they all flop over. Like, they need a little bit of they need stress. They need some stress. They need some stimulation.
Age-appropriate stress, right?
Exactly. But I think our culture kind of goes too hard, too much on the young kids. Mm-hmm. And the connection to mom and the time with dad and the time more with elders. I mean, my ideal world, which we don't have, my ideal upbringing would to be to have more multi-age kids in a village, in a tribe, where you have your 6-year-olds hanging out with your 9-year-olds, and your 13-year-olds are mentors for them, and everyone's kind of looking out for each other, and you have that multi-age communal play structure going on. I think that's where we came from.
I love it. I love that, man. So cool. You had mentioned, we're tossing around some words, like you had said homeschooled and then unschool. Yeah. So what's the difference between homeschooling and unschooling?
Unschooling is a de-emphasis on curriculum. I think that's the best way I can sum it up. It freaks people out. It's scary. They say, what about reading, writing, and math? What about those core subjects? And I think the culture lies to us. Our culture lies to us about how learning actually works and how it happens. So I trust the learning process of our kids. And you can, for me, when you look at a 1-year-old learning to walk, there was no lesson plans, and there was failure built into it. Their butts fall. Some kids get up, they let go of the. You said your kid's 14 months old?
Yeah.
So they've let go and started taking a few steps.
Yeah, he's walking.
Pretty fun. Did you ever see them wobble and fall down on their butt and kind of cry a bit?
Hundreds of times.
Built into it. Inherent failure built into learning to walk. No lesson plans. It's intrinsic. We're designed to do it. Next thing, or it's already happening, they're learning to talk through osmosis, through participating in a healthy family system, in a town, in a society. They're going to learn to speak. They don't need lesson plans. All of a sudden at age 4, when our kids in our society go to age 5, they're like, okay, that's it. We're outsourcing the rest to the teachers, and the system is going to teach our kids everything they need to know to learn to be successful. And it's like, really? Like, that's not what happened at age 1, 2, 3, or 4. And look at how far that 4-year-old's come from infancy. So what we did when our kids were in kindergarten is they stayed home carrying on what they did as a preschooler before they were they didn't need to go to a class, and they start asking questions, and they get curious about the world, and they start helping mom bake, and they start helping dad build a shed. and they go run errands, and they go to the bank and learn how to balance. Like they see dad balancing a checkbook. They see dad running a business. They see him editing videos. They see mom gardening, and you just involve your kids in your life, and they're thriving. They thrive. One of the reasons I want to unschool as well is I want to protect the intrinsic motivation instead of it pivoting to extrinsic motivation. When you go to school, you're often told there's one right answer, and you get externally rewarded for finding that answer or figuring that out and getting assessed. And learning is best done through play. And when you're not continually bombarded with assessments and trying to quantify the learning. I want my engineers to build standardized bridges. I want my plumbers to have a standardized certification they have to pass. There is a time and a place for standardized education. I don't think that's in the heart of childhood.
Wow.
Because no two kids are the same. You can't standardize when a kid's going to learn to walk. You shouldn't standardize when a kid is ready to read. They'll show you, they'll tell you, just pay attention. And then it's our job as the adults to mentor them when they're genuinely curious and ready to learn what they want to learn.
Dude, that's probably the most compelling pitch or argument for homeschooling, unschooling, what I've ever heard, man. It's too bad you're just not more passionate about this, because hey, friend, thank you so much for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. And because you're here, I want to give you a free gift for listening. And this is called Igniting Intimacy. 44 questions to ask your wife to connect deeply and spark intimacy. Maybe you're watching this and you just feel like conversation is just growing real boring in your marriage. Or maybe you've heard from your wife that she feels like she's married to a robot, or that we don't ever talk anymore, or you don't talk about how you feel. If you've heard any of these things from your wife or felt any of these things, you need to download this free gift for you, because listen, the key to connection with your wife is through quality conversation and quality questions. Okay, I promise this will not disappoint. So check out the show notes below on YouTube or whatever streaming platform you're listening on, or you could just head to dadnationco.com/intimacy for that free gift for you, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Oh man, that's fantastic. And your wife, you guys are very much on the same page about this, yeah?
Yeah, Courtney's an amazing woman. I mean, I've almost blown it a couple times with my reactivity and things that I don't know, like just general relationship stuff and men being men. And, I'm learning how to lead better and just stay grounded. But as far as these big ticket, red, or I don't know, we call them red flag, or what do you call them? Like just like the bigger like values as a family. Mm-hmm. If you're not on the same page, husband and wife, with homes, like with education, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. And Courtney and I have come by this both on our own, but then also together. And she started a 4-school program in our community for our kids. So from ages 3 to 7, our daughter is 6. She's still in it. Our boys have aged out. She created this preschool, kindergarten up to grade 2 outdoor program called 4-School. They're popping up all over Europe. They're popping up all over North America after Europe. And it's basically kind of an organized, unstructured playtime for kids, which is what we did in the 90s or 80s growing up as kids in the neighborhood. And so 4-School is kids, the little guys are outside from three hours. So from 9 to 12 or 12 to 3. And they're outside rain or shine, plus 20 to minus 30. There's no cold weather. They have a yurt to warm up by a fire. They play imaginatively, they play cooperatively, they play creatively, and there's no adults meddling in their play, telling them what to do and how to do it, and they're allowed to take risks. It's such a beautiful program. The ethos of 4-School is also another big influence on Courtney and I as far as how we raise our kids. We take that 4-School philosophy, there's like 12 core principles, and we extend that to our family and sort of live our life that way.
Wow, love that, man. We had no plan for this conversation, just for the record. If you're listening to the show and you're like, where are we going? I have no idea. But I know you're a real passionate guy, and so just
Yeah.
seeing some of your actually there's been some videos I've seen you posted as reactions to comments or other people saying things about how you live or homeschooling or whatever, and I've just been like, man, this dude's got some fire in his belly about some of these things. So I'm really glad we were able to talk about it. So what have been some of the challenging parts, man? I know you had said, you're learning a lot about leading, the home and all these different things, but this all sounds fantastic and magical, being able to live in this beautiful RV and live on the side of a mountain. I know where Fernie is. I've been there. It's gorgeous,
Yeah.
to play with your kids all day. But what are some of the challenges, or maybe there might be families or dads listening right now and considering that for their family, or even exploring what that might look like. What are some things that they'd have to think about, challenges you guys have run into that if you had your time back, you would do differently, or things you'd steer away from, or you know what I mean? What are some advice you can give them?
Because I'm a content creator and I'm posting about this, one of the like I do share some of our lifestyle unschooling takes, and also like we're a big fan of risky play, and so some of the content I post when it gets a little viral and goes over to ESPN or Barstool Sports, I get social, I get into the corners of the internet where there's non-followers seeing my videos, and I get to read a whole bunch of like awful internet comments. And so for me, that's been a good growing journey to be able to, when it first happened, I was able to check in and like take the criticism, and it almost like forced me to check in and just triple check and be like, is it true for me? Is it good? Like, I'm okay. There's some concerns out there. People are like, oh, you're doing it for views or whatever. You're doing your kids a disservice. And I was like, no, this feels true for me. So anytime, and this, I think for somebody who's not a content creator, they're parents. So if you yourself are a parent and you have kids and then you're going to choose to do something alternative, be prepared for pushback from family members that are like, you're going to do what? So, I mean, I've got the internet criticisms and like doubters, right? That can pile up and compound into my comment section. And I've also had family members that are sort of like, not sure about this. But over the years, I've sort of been able to, through my passion and my zest, and sort of the proof is in the pudding and how well-rounded our kids are turning out, and they're becoming more and more believers, you can say. But it's been met. It's scary to step outside the norm. So it's not necessarily I would do anything different, but that's to be expected if you're going to like take a radical different approach to any kind of thing, especially a lot of people have opinions on education. And when you challenge the status quo of education, you're likely going to be met with some resistance of some shape or form. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Mitchell, I'd be honest with you here. Walking this path can be a little more lonely in the sense of there's not as many like minds. There's not as many like families that you're going to be able to jive on. And I've been thinking about this a lot more recently, like how, community has to have a bunch of aligned values with people living in like if we were to live in a tribe again, let's bring it back to like the, where we came from. Like we live in larger towns and cities that have different various communities or factions of community. And I don't think I don't think I have to now. I'm trying to grow up and mature a little bit. Like not everybody has to be exactly on the same page with all of our core values in order to be in communion with them and to get along and to have a healthy relationship with them. So I think in my earlier years, it's like, yeah, we're going to be different. And I'm going to like, we're breaking away from the status quo a little bit and we're doing this. And then it's like, some people might think you're doing that because you think you're better than them. And that's sort of like a leveling war where it's like, well, I mean, I'm just following my heart, where I think all parents are doing what's best for their kids. And so I in no way, shape or form think I'm better than anybody that's making a different choice for their kids. I am going to challenge them on school not being aligned with the core needs of for children, but that doesn't mean I'm judging them as a parent. I don't know if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just, when you're carving your own path and you're not following the status quo and you're not kind of doing the same thing as everybody all the time, there's going to be a little bit more, a little more loneliness, little less connection with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's legit, man. I think it'd be, maybe a sacrifice. You could call it a sacrifice that you're willing to pay. for carving your own path, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And well, like the lone wolf thing, like if you were like a man by yourself, I think there's a lot of men out there that pride themselves on not having many friends, or they're like, I'm just going to do this on my own. And like, I think that's a bit of a wound. I think that's actually, like, I get it. I've been there, and it's like, you can kind of identify and you can think it's like a healthy thing. You know what's harder? Relating to people and experiencing conflict and repair with people that you care about.
mhm.
And so I think the lone wolf, or even the lone family thing of like, oh, we're going to be different and do it ourselves. Um, I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, the lone wolf dies alone, right? And it's not the lone wolf that leaves the pack, leaves its support systems. And even just when you think about your kids too, right? Like it's so important for kids to be in community with other kids, and also watching kids take in other adults having conversation and experiencing conflict, and how do mom and dad deal with that with their friends, and how to, seeing children seeing adults interact, I think is really fascinating, and it's important because we're their models, right? And so I agree, man. It's huge to be a part of a community. So, real quick, man, you mentioned, on this path, there's loneliness, probably that you have experienced. What are some ways that you combat that in your life with you and your wife and your family?
For me personally, the internet has been a bit of a savior in that, in the sense of like, I've met in my own personal growth journey, I've hired some life coaches over the years. And then that's brought me. I'm in a bit of a men's group with 3 coaches. I'm the only non-coach in there, but I've worked with 2 of them at one point, and then the third one I met through the other 2, and we have a biweekly call where we're able to just talk about anything that's on our hearts as men, and it's been really healthy. And so that's been a great outlet for me. And again, that's networking and connecting with men who are of like mind, like heart, like energy, that are not located in my proximity of my town. I mean, I'm also connecting with some great men locally as well, but that's just sort of almost what happened first. Kind of create some more meaningful relationships with some people that live in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then as a family, like, again, I just think that nuclear family model can put stress on a mother and a father, a husband and a wife, in a way that I don't want to use the word unfair, but I think there's an extra amount of stress when you're lacking healthy community, and then you got your own fenced up yard, and you got your own 4 walls that your family's in, and I think we're meant for more. I think community is lacking in a lot of our systems and how we live. And so yeah, we're just being mindful of that. And it's a problem, you could say, that I'm just kind of currently maturing through now and working on, I'm aware of. So I don't have necessarily a solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, good on you for just being aware and then taking the action that you need to take. So many men don't even get to the point that they're aware of what the problem is, let alone take action on it.
Sure.
I mean, I'm a huge advocate for men connecting with other men, being in, as the analogy you used, being in packs. I lead groups of men that are in cohorts together, and I also do one-on-one coaching and relationships with other men, and it is absolutely powerful. It is to see what happens to men when they are connected with other like-minded men who you are holding each other accountable. You're calling each other up to the standard that you said that you wanted for yourself, for your family. This shared camaraderie, it's powerful, man, and it leads to incredible change. So I think I'm with you 100%, man. I'd love to just take us back real quick to, you had said that you sold your house and then you bought this 5-acre piece of land. Bravo,
Yeah.
by the way, that's amazing. And now you're living in an RV.
Yeah.
So on that piece of land. So what made you decide to get out of the house? Because in a lot of ways, a lot of people would say that's the dream, right? Get the nice house, get the kids, the family, get the car, white picket fence, Now you kind of like sold that and went, into an RV and a big piece of land, but why did now? I think it's a fascinating idea, which is even why we're even having this conversation today. Because a lot of things you do, I'm like, this is so wild.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do that? What about that idea? Hey, let's just get rid of everything and go over here and do this instead.
The dream here is to. Courtney's from Saskatchewan. I think one of her childhood core memories was nursing farm cats when like mama cat died and baby kittens needed milk, and she like nursed them to adulthood, or at least juvenile, like becoming a juvenile cat. So we wanted to give our kids more space and room to be kids outside. So we got a sweet trampoline from Acon, got a good brand collaboration deal with a leading backyard trampoline company. We got chickens. We're getting some fresh eggs now. And so, we didn't have 9-10 kids. We're not the conservative Christian farm families that are, that typically were the ones that used to homeschool, or the only ones that I thought of homeschooling when I was a kid. But there's something about that life. Again, minus the 9 or 10 kids, we've only got 3. There's something about having some farm chores, some basic outdoor farm chores that like we value as parents now. And the kids just have like real consequences. It's not just like clean your room and take care of the dust here. It's like if the chicken coop doesn't get closed, like a bear or a fox might get in there, and then we lose our chickens. And the kids just have a real sense of like urgency or realness to the consequences of living out here. We're going to put in a big garden this spring. We built this is an office bunkie of mine I'm in right now, office downstairs to edit videos, bedroom upstairs where I can sleep after night shifts if I get rocked as a paramedic. So we want to have some food coming from our garden. We want our kids to be involved in where our food comes from. We have a creek. We want our kids to be able to build forts. The dream is to actually connect 2 yurts together and have them like one yurt will have a wood stove, IKEA kitchen, and master bedroom in it. The other yurt will be partitioned into 3 bedrooms and a common area for the kids, so they can have friends over. They can still play board games. We're really into Catan right now for a post-Christmas present. They can do Lego. They can play music. We want them to have a nice little indoor kid space. French doors out onto a deck, and then we have a dog. We got farm cats now, and like. We just have a vision for living a little more simply and a little more connected to nature.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. Love that. I did have something to ask, and then you started talking about yurts, and I just got kind of lost in fantasy about what that would look like.
It's all good. Yeah, I created an AI image for that, like 2 yurts about 6 feet off the ground on a nice deck.
Yeah,
and that's the goal. I'm gonna figure out how to make that happen.
I love it. Hey, we're going to get back to the episode, but while I have you here, I wanted to ask you, would you consider helping a brother who's struggling in his life right now? Maybe it's a guy searching the internet to help save his marriage, his health, or his family. Maybe it's a man that's just behind you on this journey. And we know, statistically speaking, there are thousands of men doing this, and we know that there are probably men in your social circles that are struggling with some of these very same things. If you'd be willing to help, this is how you can help, and I promise it'll take less than 60 seconds. If you've gotten any value from this podcast so far, would you be willing to give us an honest review and subscribe to our channel, whatever channel you're listening on? If you want to take this to the next level, would you consider sending this link to a friend of yours who you know would benefit from listening to this show? Now, why would you do that? Because the more men that hear this content, the more marriages we can save, the more fathers we can help step up, and the more lives that we can change forever. This isn't just for the men. This is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come. So I want to say thank you so much for doing your part to help other men find the support that they need. Now let's get back to it. No, I remember now what I was going to say was teaching your kids these things teaches them, or like, the cleaning out the chicken coop, closing the door, all that stuff. It really teaches them the responsibility and accountability, taking pride in what you do, instilling the power of work ethic, delayed gratification, like you name it, man. All these really essential life skills as we grow into mature adulthood that are very important. You're instilling these things into these kids at an early age, and I think that's powerful, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, man, just to wrap this up here, I ask every guest the same question on this show, and it's a little bit morbid, but work with me here.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this idea of, you know, your death and what will happen at the end of your life kind of thing. The more that I'm faced with my mortality,
Hmm.
the more it informs on how I ought to live while I'm here.
Hmm.
And a lot of times with my clients, I'll lead them through like an exercise where they write their own eulogy,
Mm.
which is can be powerful reflection tool. And so, yeah, I want you to picture with me for a moment, Eric, that you had passed away, and your family, the memorial service is over, and everyone has gone home, but your three kids and your wife are kind of sitting around the table, and they're just reflecting about Dad, about the father he was, about the husband he was. They're telling stories about who you were, and you could kind of have this out of body experience, if you will, or be a fly on the wall, and you'd have the opportunity to hear your children talk about the man you were and the father you were. What are some things that you would want them or hope that they would say about who you were and the father
Mm.
you were to them?
I would want them to say that they felt seen and known by me.
Hmm.
And that means to see and know all of them.
Love
And
that.
I want them to I'd want them to say that I was one of or the person that they could come to no matter what was going on in their life.
Hmm. That's good. Well, sounds like you're on the way to making that happen because you're so involved in their lives. It's a powerful question, right?
Yeah. I'm still, for the record, I'm still learning lots and working on some things in order to ensure that that would be something they might say.
Mm-hmm. And I encourage you to dig into it, man. I think about that often, and it is probably one of the most impactful questions I've asked myself. And every morning I get up, I'll often ask myself, at the end of the day, every single day that we live, we're writing a chapter, you know, and we're telling a story or writing a book. And when we pass away, our kids, our wives are going to tell that story. They're going to read that story,
Mm-hmm.
to those that we love and those who knew us. And the question becomes is what chapter am I writing today of that story that they'll read one day?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that every single chapter that I write is one of a man who shows up, who loves his family, who loves his wife, who did his best to help his kids be seen, heard, loved. And so, yeah, man, I love the journey you're on. I think it's powerful. I think you're doing some really cool things. And I just want to affirm you and say, keep doing what you're doing. And I mean, you got over 300,000 Instagram followers and a ton on YouTube and everywhere else. And though it may seem kind of tough to deal with the haters on Instagram and or whatever, or even family who don't understand. But you're a man of conviction, and you're doing it. You're doing a cool thing, and so keep putting in the work. Keep pushing towards that dream you have for your wife and your family, man, because it's incredible. Last thing, just to share, because I know that people are going to want to know where they can find you. Where can we find you on Instagram or on the internet? Like, where can we get a hold of you, support you, whatever the case might be?
Yeah. So the handle's called That Mountain Life, and it's the same handle on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are the three that I post the most regularly on. Facebook's just sort of a bit of a boomer afterthought, I guess. The reels get auto posted there. And so YouTube is sort of like where the best long form content obviously is, and that's sort of the platform that matters the most to me as a creator, and I think at least most Canadian creators. Yeah, I'm going to be talking more about our unschooling, homeschooling ethos there. Some long form, just talking videos as well. So, Mitchell, thanks so much for having me, and I can tell by the depth of where you're speaking from, that your child, you have a son or daughter?
Son.
Yeah, that your son and wife are lucky to have you in their lives as well. So
Thank you, brother.
Keep it up, man.
Well, thank you, Eric, for joining us on the show. And if you're listening and you want to get a hold of Eric or get more of his information content, you heard it. I'm going to post it all in the show notes below. Whatever streaming platform you're listening, or on YouTube, check out the show notes on the comments section and check his stuff out. He's got some incredible videos and a lot of great things to share. So listen, Eric, thanks for being on the show, brother. Appreciate your time. Love what you're doing. And let's connect again soon. Wow, what an incredible episode. Listen, if you are watching on YouTube today, I want to hear from you, okay? Leave it in the comments below. What was the big takeaway for you? What was that big aha moment? And let's start the conversation. If you've listened to this episode and you've decided that you want help today, if you need coaching, if you need some resources, feel free to please reach out to me. My email is mitchell@dadnationco.com. My website is dadnationco.com. You can hit me up on Instagram @dadnationco. And I've got a ton of resources for you. I'm here to help you, support you in any way I can, and to serve you in a powerful way. So check those links. I'll have them posted below. But other than that, listen, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. Have an incredible week. We'll catch up soon.